Yo, what's going on, So Delicious Squad? I'm back on your screen yet again, this time after a little hiatus. But what is this camera quality, bro? Hey, do I look sexual or not? Tell me. Nah, that's enough. So today I got a bit of a different one. You know, you could call it an infographic, you could call it an informational video, you could call it So Delicious back on your screen. But we're just gonna get straight to it. So, you know, we're closing in towards the end of the year. This year passed, we've had lockdown, we've had a lot of gaming, we've had a lot of tournaments. I've started streaming, all of that good stuff. And it got me to thinking, yeah, out of all the casual tournaments I've done this year in Australia, let's say mainly Warzone and what I've seen in Apex and PUBG, there's really not much capital in Australia to work with. Like if you're an esports player or someone who games for a living, there's not much other than Twitch and YouTube to get your income. That's if you're big enough. Now, is there enough viewership in Australia for all of that? There probably is, but why are the tournaments so small? Even the crowd-funded ones, the biggest I've seen, to be honest, maximum if it's Activision sponsored or something, or if it's sponsored by a big creator, 10 grand, 25, and that's like a once a year type of thing. When in comparison to the North American and European communities and scenes, there's just money raining down on all these players. So what is it? Why is Australia so left out? You know, you can split gaming every year into segments. You know, it could be events, it could be game releases, it could be tournaments, depending on what type of community you're a part of. It's not niche anymore, it's very mainstream. There's so many different communities, there's so many different people and walks of life a part of the gaming scene. Now, this could even be uploads or streams or whatever from your creator. There's nothing too big or small in gaming at the moment, you know, it's a place for everyone. Now, there's some interesting stats that kind of show you that Australia is not a very small gaming community. As of December 2020, according to Xander Wilson from Umbrella, 3 months after December 2020, 5.5 million Aussies were playing video games. Now, that's other than the 2.3 million average eyeballs on esports in Australia right now. So, now when you see these numbers, you got 2.3 million people watching esports, you got 5.5 million people playing video games in an average span of 3 months in a continent of about 25 plus million people. That's not a small number. That's a pretty big percentage. That's not a niche group of people or an alienated bunch in like a niche community. That's a lot of people. That's your everyday walk of life. Could be your workmate, could be a family member, could be, you know what I mean, anything. All of them are in the space, in anime, in gaming, in video games, in streaming, and even something as small as casual gaming or memes or social media. That's a lot of damn people, so why are we so left out? Look, maybe left out wasn't the right term to use. What I'm trying to say is that from what I've seen, if you take a look and you pull up the top 100 earnings or the top 100 earners in esports from Australia, the top 10, majority of the time had to go overseas to reach success, which is fine. I guess in major sports, like if you want to play soccer, football, you have to go overseas, you have to be in Europe, you have to be in the space. Same with like Counter-Strike or Call of Duty, you got to be in North America, that's just where the success is. But at the same time, there's just little to no sponsorship in Australia at all for up and coming people. And it's actually close to embarrassing because the numbers are so small. You got people playing for $800 a month. And these sponsorships that are available in North America, mind you, and Europe, they have branches in Australia. Australia is a main continent, it's a main country for a lot of these companies. They got big branches, they got buildings in the city. So where the hell are these sponsorships going? Well, that's a major talking point, and here's why. Let me start you off with a little example to do with my personal life so we can maybe tiptoe into the reason as to why big companies, big names and marketers in Australia are so narrow-minded and they won't sponsor esports teams or tournaments and the likes. So I work in internet, you know, I work in the city. I meet about 10, 12 people a day because I do about, you know, quite a few jobs during the day, more than 10. Majority of the time, whether someone's middle-aged, you know, 30 to 40 or older, they're not going to know what I'm talking about if I was to speak about my hobbies, which is what? Gaming, YouTube, esports, blah, blah, blah. And when I speak to people who are between the ages of 18 to 25, it's a 50-50 chance they'll know what I'm talking about. So even though the gaming community in Australia is not niche or alien, it's still not mainstream. And the people who have the money, the big marketers, they're very narrow-minded in their thinking. So the major thing they'll try to do is slap on ads on your Twitch streams, slap on ads on YouTube. But in reality, that's just clicks, that's just eyeballs. It's not really impactful to our communities as a whole. Now, further proof of how bad it is in Australia is this paper I found from the University of Melbourne titled Esports Spectatorship in Australia. Now, this is a research paper from the Network Society Institute by Martin Gibbs and his fellow, co-workers. Now, in this paper, there's a table that details all the prize pools of all the major esports tournaments that were done on Australian soil from 2016 to 2018. How many of those were internationally sponsored and how many of those were ANZ only tournaments and events. And you can see the discrepancies in the amount of money in the prize pool. So you can tell that when it's just an ANZ tournament, unfortunately, the prize pools are very small. And when it's a massively internationally recognized tournament like the Overwatch World Cup that was hosted in 2017, IEM Sydney 2017 and 2018, you can see the prize pools are much, much bigger. Events like IEM Sydney were actually very groundbreaking. Now, don't look too much at the physical attendees because there wasn't much. However, the physical attendance of people that were watching doubled from 2017 to 2018. So it's obvious there's growth, but it's obvious that it's more digital. It's a different type of engagement. If you look at the amount of millions and millions of views from unique viewers around the world for events like this, you'll see where a majority of the money is generated and you'll see where there is such a big community. Now, unfortunately, big marketing brands in Australia would rather see their ads on AFL games and NRL games and stuff that the Australian culture is more inclined to deal with and stuff that they see as kind of mainstream. Now, Australia has its own culture and that's understandable. You would rather see your stuff on Channel 10 News to 90,000 viewers or whatever. You would rather advertise your stuff on billboards and games and fields. But you can't just turn a blind eye to a whole industry that's growing so rapidly that the rest of the world has seemed to already caught on to and we aren't catching on. Now, look, we've had a step in the right direction in the past 3-4 years. Some AFL teams, some NRL teams have adopted some esports organizations that are already existing and gave them physical grounds, well, like a place to practice and a place to represent that certain team, because in reality esports organizations don't really have a place to stay. Everyone's just scattered at home and they meet up for LAN events or for tournaments. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that big marketing organizations are missing out on a massive opportunity with esports, unfortunately, because they don't understand it, and unfortunately because these are multi-million, multi-billion dollar enterprises that will spend so little of their money in gaming to the point where they will feel it's not worth their time. Is there a solution? With all these gatekeepers in Australia, with all the intricacies of Australian culture and gaming not really being mainstream just yet for the big middle-aged heads and CEOs of companies, is there a solution? Yes, there is. It is a bit of a generational problem, I'm not gonna lie, and that generational gap is hard to break. You can't just wait for people like me at 24, 25 years old to hit the age of 35 and then take over your company and then somehow, revolutionize the esports thing and start pumping money into it. It's not about just how many eyeballs are on your ad. It's not about that. It's about building long-term relationships in a growing and fastly growing industry with millions and millions and millions of dollars and millions of eyeballs. And the best way to do that, to be honest, is by supporting teams and supporting groups and supporting infrastructure rather than advertisements and trying to own leagues and trying to pump money into things hoping for a profit or a return. Is it a long-term investment? Of course it is. It's going to be long-term, but the results are there. You look at people like Optic Hex, you look at people like FaZe Clan, you look at people like that who in the span of 5 to 10 years have done things that no one could have imagined before. There is millions and millions of dollars involved in this industry and we're just like letting it pass by. And the sad thing is, in Australia, when it comes to soccer, when it comes to esports, when it comes to all of these things that are not considered Aussie culture in general, we just let them pass by. And we let the rest of the world take over. And then when we go to something like the World Cup and the Socceroos struggle, we're like, where did we go wrong? Well, literally, in every single way, bro. Like, the sad reality is that in Australia, you're going to have single players like, for example, JKS in Counter-Strike, or this guy in that game, or this guy in that game. They're going to do well overseas representing us, but there's not really a collective effort to actually put our continent on the map. And that's because there's no infrastructure, and that's because there's no support, and that's because Aussie culture doesn't support things outside of it. And I don't know how to put that in a nice way, but for example, if it's not rugby, if it's not AFL, if it's not this and that, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to break into the limelight, and that's just because it's just the way it is. It's gatekept. There's a lot of narrow minds. There's a lot of people with tight pockets, tight asses, and you got all this potential in a continent full of great people, full of immigrants, full of like all walks of life, with untapped potential and so much talent that just sitting there. And yeah, that's just a sad reality. That's me. Well, if you made it this far, I just want to thank you so much for watching. It was a different style of video. I'm gonna try to do one of these, you know, maybe once a fortnight. This little informational infographic type of video. Maybe in the future I can cancel someone for something, but let's just not go there. This is a drama alert. And that's me, So P, signing out.